To the Black girl who is finally ready to allow herself to be seen this year, I see you. Hey, it's Kaylin, a licensed clinical social worker and therapist in Atlanta, Georgia, and this is the Black Girl Scene podcast. Welcome to a whole new year. Welcome to 2026. I hope you had a great transition. I hope the holidays, if they weren't restful, I hope they were fun, because mine were not restful at all. I was all over the place this holiday break, but I had so much fun. So one or the other is fine by me. Now, as we get into the new year, I hope you can calm some of the noise that comes with it being a quote unquote new year and feeling this pressure to start habits out of nowhere and achieve arbitrary goals that may or may not matter to you. I hope that you are leaning into rest. I hope you are leaning into respite also, because it's been a rough start sociopolitically. Not that the finish was any better, but I want to name for us that you might be feeling some anxiety both in your personal life and as we think about how the world is unfolding right now. And I am wishing community and regulated nervous systems on every ear that my voice is touching. So I'm standing with you in navigating that anxiety and also feeling some guilt around having hope for a new year while we're staring at so many challenging things in the face, while we're consuming so much challenging news and existing in really tough times. So I want us all to remember that your rest, your healing, and your joy are resistance, and it is a part of the revolution. So continue to make room for those things. Which brings me to my point for our topic today. I really hope that as you think about the year ahead, that you think about allowing yourself to be seen. I hope you've taken some time to listen to our first set of episodes that we had over the fall, which I'm really excited about. If you haven't listened to them, please make sure you add them to your listening list, if you will, for this year. But we talk about feeling seen and being seen, often knowing that we are the key holders to that experience. A lot of people can see us. In fact, a lot of people do see us, but we don't always experience that feeling unless we allow it. And sometimes people want to see us. Sometimes people have the capacity to see us, but they're not able to because they don't have access to, because once again, we haven't allowed it. So I'm hopeful that as you write down your goals and your plans and your intentions for the season ahead, that you put some space on there for allowing yourself to be seen. This is how you open yourself to the healing, the relationships, the experiences, and the progress that we want, we crave, we work for. So I want to start off this season, if you will, anchoring us in a way to hold room for how we will allow ourselves to be seen as we traverse the new year. So instead of coming up with a true list, just because I think the nature of being seen is not super structured, it's not a 1-2 step, it's truly a process of flow and allowing and being. But I did come up with some main categories that I think we can focus on in order to inspire ways we can allow ourselves to be seen this year. So the categories I thought of are the different areas where I think it's important we practice more vulnerability. And that is in our routines, in our relationships, in our risk taking, and in our rest. I'm really excited to talk about these 4 domains, and I'm going to offer some specific ways that I think we can stretch ourselves this year to create room for the level of intimacy and visibility that I trust will help us heal. So the first one is routine, which I think is really important given this time of year. We're thinking about routines. If you're like me, you didn't know what was going on this first week. And I don't know if we're going to feel any better anytime soon. That's another story for another day. But what I can say is that our routines really do shape our life. And too often we become very married to routines that no longer serve us. And this is not just a talk about like, let's get more organized or let's get more disciplined. This is a conversation around, have we made room in our lives for the things we actually care about, for the things that actually make us feel good, for the things that actually matter to us and that are good for us? Probably not. right? There are some of us who are getting up at the crack of dawn, going to a gym, doing whatever the internet told us to do, and we hate it. And then we were told that, it's about discipline. It's not about joy, which I wholeheartedly reject at this stage of my life. And I hope that you do too. I think it's important that we ask ourselves why. Truly, why do you go grocery shopping on Sundays? Why? I'm literally telling you all my whole routine because I do get up at 5 to work out. But let me tell you something. I actually realize why I do it. I don't just do it because I'm supposed to. It actually helps me feel better and get through my day. And I don't want to do it forever, so I won't because I don't want to. It doesn't work for me to do it every single day. But because I found classes that actually bring me joy and actually foster community, and I noticed actual biological benefits, getting up in the morning does not feel like a fight anymore. It doesn't feel like something I'm forcing myself to do. It just feels like this is what I do on this day. And tomorrow I'm not doing that. Tomorrow I'm sleeping in until whenever, and my routine looks different because it's what I need and what I like. So I want to invite you to do the same thing and really ask yourself, why do I get up at this time? If I've chosen to incorporate certain types of movement into my life, is this the movement I want? Do I really want to go to that run club? Like, really, do I really want to be at this run club? There are walking clubs. There are run clubs that don't care if you don't run. There are also things like yoga and Pilates and skating and hiking. There are so many other ways you can move your body that you might actually like. It might be time to shift out of what you think you're supposed to be doing. Maybe you want to actually grocery shop at a different time. Maybe you don't want to shop at the grocery store anymore. Maybe you want to just switch completely to delivery and use your time in different ways. Maybe where you live right now is not the place for you anymore. Or maybe you do like where you live, but you want to incorporate more travel. And although your budget may not mean that you can jet set every weekend, are there places around your community that you can start to visit and shake up what you see day to day? Kind of getting a little more granular. How have you set up your work? Does it truly work for you? Can you switch up your space so that you're sparking more joy? If you work from home, are you tied to your desk, or can you start to try different spaces? I work with a lot of students, both in undergrad, graduate, medical school, and 9 times out of 10, the minute they change up where they study, how they study follows suit. So sometimes we are doing things in a way that doesn't spark joy, that doesn't meet our needs. And how it equates to hiding is that we have now cut off so many other opportunities to become immersed in the world around us in ways that would actually benefit us. I've made friends in those early morning workout classes. We're some of the few people who are a little silly enough to do that, and we connect and bond over that, right? I do enjoy certain coffee shops, and I've built friendships around going to those places to get work done. So these are things that can end up benefiting you more so than just your productivity levels or your energy levels. It can also benefit you and your community and getting a lot of your needs met. Which brings me to my next point, that I really want to invite us to practice more vulnerability in our relationships now. I recognize that this is like the bulk of our work. So I don't want us to kind of whip out our pens and think, oh, I'm going to find these ways to be vulnerable in my relationships and voila. This is more of a commitment to being intentional and saying, I am going to work on this form of vulnerability that I normally don't do to help co-create the relationships I want. For me, I realized I got really good at a lot of externalizing vulnerability. What I mean by that is I actually got a little better with boundary setting. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but there's some things, there's a distancing practice in boundaries that can be comfortable. So there's something about learning to say no and then learning how to be okay with how you feel and all. There's something about that is distancing versus what I'm wanting to work on now, which is really inviting people into my emotions. And I'm excited about the podcast to come. I'm going to really try to get a lot deeper about these topics. When we share with people, it happens on different levels. We might share on a surface level, like this is what happened to me today, or even this is how I feel about what happened with my family the other day. Then there's another level where you might talk about how you feel about the person in front of you. And that's like level 10 vulnerability. it's hard maybe to talk about maybe something going on in your personal life and not knowing how someone will respond or if you can trust them with that information. That is absolutely a vulnerability practice, but that's one that I think I've gotten more comfortable with, but I'm not as comfortable with saying, hey, here's how I feel about you right now, or based off something that happened between us. That one is real challenging. So I see anyone who's also like, yeah, I'm not doing that, right? Or I only do that with my partner when we're really upset with each other, right? And so I also want to challenge myself to do this when there's not a huge problem or with people maybe I haven't normally done that with. There's a really powerful intimacy building process that occurs when we find the courage to tell someone how we feel and we know that it directly involves a relationship we're both building and give them an opportunity for repair. Is what we're talking about. And even if it's not repair, it might be a need. It might be, hey, I'm really enjoying spending time with you. I would love to spend more time with you. Maybe how much time you're spending with someone doesn't feel like enough and there's a need. You want to express all of that, all that stuff there. That's top tier stuff right there. So I know that's something I want to work on this year, and I want to invite you to probably, if that's your thing, do that. If all the other pieces of it feel inaccessible or they feel like they'll be byproducts of your vulnerability practice, I say go with that. I don't want you to think I'm perfect at boundaries. I'm not. I just think when it comes down to the list of things I'm willing to try, I'll probably tell someone no before I tell someone how I feel about them. So I just wanted to put that out there. I want to be as honest as possible. So with that being said, maybe setting boundaries is your vulnerability practice that you want to hone in on this year. Maybe you're really good at setting boundaries, or let me not say good. Maybe you're really comfortable setting boundaries at work, but maybe not at home. Maybe you're really comfortable setting boundaries with romantic partners, but it's harder with your friends. So you can get really specific about where you want to grow in these areas. I want to push us maybe to become a little more open to meeting new people. Maybe we're never the ones to say hi. Maybe we don't love doing things alone. Maybe this can be a year where you venture out and allow yourself to build new community. That's something I've seen a lot of conversation around, and I really loved recommending the book Platonic. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. It's by Dr. Marissa Franco. And she does the absolutely most beautiful job of tying attachment theory, which is my niche, if you will, my theory of choice in my work, to how it connects to building relationships with people, specifically friendships or platonic relationships, and how much we just built a society that doesn't hold that as well, but we can rebuild that. I think this is so important. Maybe more now than ever before, because we really want to combat the loneliness epidemic and we need community, as I said earlier, given all the things going on in our world. Some other suggestions is kind of just thinking, how can I maybe switch up something that I don't normally do in my relationships to allow for more intimacy? In other words, maybe even offering up some control that we like to hold in our relationships. So that can mean that if typically you wait for people to invite you places, what if you are the initiator? And if maybe you always have the plans and you have some control over that, what would it look like to let others lead? Maybe it's a season for you to learn to speak up more. On the flip side, maybe this is a season for stepping back. Maybe this is a season to go to therapy and work on some emotional things outside of your relationship so that you can bring them back to the relationship. And maybe also you've been in therapy for a while and it's time to maybe tease yourself out of it a bit, or maybe transition how you do therapy and join like a therapy group or a support group, right? To supplement the work and move out of your comfort zone, right? So as much as therapy is amazing, and I think therapy fits for the lifespan. I'm not saying that, you're supposed to just grow out of it and never go back. It depends. Some people will only go to therapy once. Of course, some people will never go. Some people will be in therapy for the lifespan, but you won't necessarily go at the same cadence or frequency because you've built so many tools. It becomes more of a maintenance practice in your life. And so be curious about what type of emotional support you need in this season and how that might empower your vulnerability practices. Maybe this is a season to end relationships. That is a vulnerability practice, to allow the empty space to be there and trust that what will come in its place will be so much better, and that you can sustain with some empty spaces in your life, because you can. On the flip side, maybe this is time to mend, resume, or revisit some relationships. And I want to be mindful when I say that because I don't think we talk a lot about mending relationships or picking back up because so many of us do the hard work of saying goodbye. And I think sometimes there are seasons that call for us to revisit something that we didn't have the capacity to do at a different time. And now's the time to do it. So I want to just offer that up. And if it fits for you, I hope you take it. With that being said, all of these things are very risky. And that's an area that I actually think we need to practice more vulnerability in, our risk taking. So in one way, taking risks at all is vulnerable. But what I want to specifically name in this one is we take risks every day. But some risks feel more comfortable than others. We take a risk every time we drive in the car, but it's so normalized that we just do it and we just take care of ourselves, hopefully. And if you live in Atlanta, Godspeed. So that might be a risk you're comfortable with, but maybe there's some other kind of risks that we consistently avoid because there's something about that either feels really scary to us or it means a lot to us that it works out. And if it doesn't, we don't know if we can hold and tolerate the disappointment of it not working out. We don't take it personally if we hit traffic. It might be annoying, but we don't then feel so devastated. Let me be clear, devastated emotionally because you cared about not hitting traffic. You might be devastated because you don't want to be in Atlanta traffic, but, or any city's traffic for that matter. But it's different when you start a project or even when you say hello to someone and maybe they're not as excited or enthusiastic about reciprocating. That can sting. But I still want to encourage you to take those other risks this year because those risks are where your healing lie. Sometimes it is about learning to tolerate the disappointment because once you can tolerate that disappointment and you have the capacity to show up in the things that matter to you, then you're actually spending time doing things that matter to you because you're not too afraid to do it anymore. Or rather, you've built up the capacity to do it. And the more you do it, the more likely it is that it'll turn out in your favor. So there are some of us who maybe have some projects that we've been avoiding, and I want to invite you to ask yourself if this is the time. You might also be working on something that you've known for a while. It's time to walk away from, but it's felt really uncomfortable, and maybe it's time to free yourself from that. Maybe you are in a workspace that you know it's time to leave. Or maybe you're in a workspace that you really enjoy, but you are ready for the promotion, you're ready for the leadership, or you're ready to birth something new in that space, right? Maybe you've just been avoiding some things and I want you to brave that. Even outside of like starting something new, maybe do something new, maybe ask for feedback in spaces where you normally wouldn't, ask people to help you with things that you normally wouldn't want to rely on someone for. I think this can even fit in with the routines. Travel somewhere new, right? Shake up how you do things in a way that maybe you feel like if I actually put my time into this, what if it doesn't work, right? And of course, there are ways to calculate your risks to support yourself and stay safe. But I really want to ask you if there's a dream in your heart, whether it's literally a book or a business, or if it's just a dream that you can actually be the friend who leans on people and not just the friend that others lean on. If that's your dream, I want to invite you to take that risk this year. I also want to ask you to take that risk even if it doesn't feel good, because I do trust that we have our intuitions and we have a sense about when things feel right for us. But we also, when it comes to vulnerability, we often misconflate our intuition for our anxiety. And so sometimes our anxiety either makes us do things that we shouldn't be doing, or rather it supports us in continuing protective behaviors that are not actually helpful for us, or it causes us to avoid things that would actually benefit us because you feel too scared. So I want us to get a little bit more bold, moving beyond the anxiety, because sometimes that's not your intuition saying no, that's your anxiety holding you back. All right. So I want us to kind of sit with that as well. And finally, I know I talked about a lot of what I want us to do this year, but I want us to do less at the same time. And I think resting in general which is our last category. I think resting in general is vulnerable, especially for those of us who have learned that our productivity is our worth and all of these things are so tied to our survival. It sometimes does not feel safe to pull back, to take your foot off the gas. So I want us to ease into, and I didn't say this before, but I want us to ease into all of this. I don't even know if it makes sense for us to pick something from every category. For some of us, we might pick one thing this year to practice vulnerability in. And that's usually the secret sauce, because that is how you open the door to the capacity to do more. So I say all that to say, for some of us, resting more might mean that we typically work all the way up until the minute it's time for bed. And now we have like a 20-minute buffer. That's huge. Like, even just carving out some time at the end of the day where you are going to close your laptop and you're going to put your phone up and you are going to prepare for sleep, that might change your life. That could be a game changer. That might help you have even marginally better sleep, which then gives you more energy. Then you might get a little more comfortable knowing that it's okay to step away from work every now and again. And then that might turn into a 30-minute buffer. And then that might turn into actually taking your lunch, right? You never know how these small things add up. So I want to encourage you to start small, but I did want to name some things that I think, especially Black women, I hope we prioritize, that we do it up front, that we do it in ways that we do not feel like we have to earn, but in ways where it is our birthright to have and experience true guilt-free rest. Here goes some examples. And if you're wincing when I say something, I actually think that might be the one you want to try. Take your PTO now. Go ahead and plan it. Don't wait for the sick day. Don't wait till you're burned out. Plan some time off now. Plan your vacations now. Not just from a budget perspective, because I do think sometimes, depending on your planning style, maybe you did already put it on the calendar, but then can you say, okay, I'm going to be gone for this amount of time, but I'm not going to work down to the minute and then start working as soon as I get back. Can you block and buffer some time for yourself? Or can you actually give yourself permission to have more than one or two vacations and know that it's okay to have some smaller ones along the way, right? Maybe advocate for some tweaks and changes to your schedules. And I know a lot of us are in very interesting predicaments when it comes to work and life. So I'm holding that for us. And can it be that maybe some of us were already early risers and we're just going to get in there an hour early so we can leave an hour earlier and have some more wiggle room for something, or even it just takes a little bit of time off of our commute because we're missing a little bit of traffic, maybe not too much, but some, right? Maybe we need to update our routine to include more sleep, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe if you are someone who can nap, because I know not everyone can nap, but maybe you schedule your day around naps, especially if you work from home and you know that you can, fit a nap in your lunch break or whatever. Also, let's actually start taking our lunch breaks. Let's also take our walk breaks. Like, let's take breaks, right? Instead of feeling like we are machines. And I want to name, it's not like we woke up and we want it to be this way. We have been responding to a system that taught us that our labor was our worth. And so I want us to feel empowered to unlearn that. Maybe it's time to say no more. Saying no is rest. Saying, I'm not going to be able to go to that event, right? Saying, I'm not going to be able to make every one of your kids' parties. I'm not going to be able to make everything. It is okay to say that. I actually just saw the funniest reel where someone was saying, I'm a Capricorn. I like to complain that I'm so tired, but I sign up for everything. And so then I felt attacked. But it's true. And I've actually learned, and I've tried my best not to talk about being tired too much when I'm out, because I did this to me. I said I could come. And so I'm wanting to be better at making sure that when I say yes to something, I have as much capacity as possible, because I want to be present for my community. And being present doesn't mean literally just being there. It means also wanting to be there, right? That being said, this is an idea that another friend of mine gave me that I've started to do since last year. And it's really changed a lot for me, which is in advance when you're planning your calendar, you're planning your month, go ahead and block some weekends or evenings to keep for yourself. The same way you're putting meetings and dinners and travel on your calendar 1 to 2 months in advance, do the same for rest days. And if you can't commit to specific days, commit to quotas. So I also have a rule that I cannot go out every single night. And I don't want y'all to think I just be outside, because I don't. But I will have to work many evenings, and then I'll have maybe 1 or 2 dinners, and then I'll have some things I committed to with family, or a workout class, or even an appointment or something of my own. And then I'll get to the end of the week and I'm exhausted, because I realized there was no day that I could just come home and relax. And so even if I can't say I'm going to relax every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever day that is, I may say, okay, at least every week I need 1 or 2 or how many ever evenings or hours that are unplanned to give myself some buffer. Because remember, y'all, if you don't slow down, your body will do it for you. That is so true. Some other suggestions: plan things more spaced out in general, right? Just think, how can you create space to relax for yourself? Can you space out your travel schedules and itineraries? Because I'm terrible at that. I will pack an itinerary. I will squeeze something in. Maybe let's not do that anymore. Can we choose to fly instead of drive sometimes? I know financially we have to be mindful of these things, but sometimes doing that, hiring the cleaners, getting the laundry service, ordering the meal prep, sometimes it's important that we be the ones to say, I will not put all of this on me. I won't internalize the system that I've been in that has said, I have to do it all. I have to be on all the time in all ways. We get to be the ones, right? We are the keepers for feeling seen. And so when we don't get to rest and we feel burned out and we're overcommitting to things and we're showing up exhausted and we're grumpy and resentful, or we feel like we have no help, we feel like we have no support, we feel like it's too much. It's true. And how can we show up in that pattern and invite not only ourselves, but others to create more buffer and support so that we do not feel expended all the time, to whatever extent? So even if all of these things sounded like absolute luxuries, let's start small. I want to invite you, can we do just one? Right? Can we do just one? Can we do one vacation, one day off, one evening that's blocked off, one time that we pay for something that we just normally would not pay for if it means we get to rest a little more? That is my hope for you. So I've kind of gone on, but I really wanted to paint a picture of different ways that I hope you can practice vulnerability this year and show up for yourself in ways that will create space for visibility and intimacy in your life. And as we close, I want to invite you to write this stuff down, and not only write it down, put it on your phone, hang it up on your wall, set a reminder daily, weekly, really immerse yourself in this, which is why I know I offered a lot of ideas, but I really want to encourage us to focus on 1 or 2, because I want us to really let this sink in. If we truly only work on getting more rest, can you imagine how much more capacity you'd have to engage in healthy conflict in your relationships, right? If you work on how to express your emotions more clearly and authentically, do you know how much that could lead to support that will allow for more rest? If you allow yourself to follow that dream that's been on the shelf and it's all you focus on, do you see how much that can transform your entire life? And then empower you to only take the people with you who make you feel safe, because that's the only other way you can hold your dreams. These things all play into each other. So please don't pack out your papers with 20 things you want to change in 2026 or 26 things you want to change in 2026. Find your 1, 2, maybe 3, and really ask yourself, how can I integrate this into my life? How can I center myself in these new ways in this new year? Okay, so thank you so much for listening today. If you liked it, please, first of all, save it and come back to it if you need some reminder about how to allow yourself to be seen this year. But also subscribe, share, like, and rate the podcast. And also in the show notes, you'll see a link to the Scene Sunday newsletter where I share a little bit more detail. And I'm always reminding you when the next episode drops. So to the Black girl who is setting a deep intention of being seen this year, I see you. Thank you for listening. And until next time, take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Black Girl Scene podcast. This podcast is meant for information purposes only and is not meant to substitute for medical advice. Although I'm a licensed therapist, this podcast does not establish a clinical relationship with you, the listener, nor does it replace a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. For more information and resources on finding a therapist or support, please visit www.blackgirlscene.com/support.